Hey folks, Hal here. Hey, want to talk about the biggest challenge people have in the woods, especially the big woods trying to hunt, is navigation. It's the number one, and it's the key to be able to hunt successfully in the big woods. And a compass, of course, you got to have a compass, but maps to go along with your compass is really going to be a key. You know, they're going to show you a lot of things like your terrain features and all that, and also the old trails, logging roads, etc. And I think the way to get these is with onX. They've got a great mapping software, and you can download it into your phone as an app, or you can get an SD chip to put into your GPS. They fit most any modern GPS, and that'll cover. You can get them. You can get a chip for any state, or you can when you download the app, what you can do is download, topographical, but also satellite imagery. And that's the one I use the most, because the satellite imagery tells me I can see what kind of trees, if it's softwood trees, hardwood trees, and you can also see logging, different types of cuts. It might be a clear cut or whatever. Very, very helpful for hunting, whether it's deer, moose, or anything you're hunting. But what I like about it is when you're hunting in remote areas, you don't have cell service. So you're basically offline. But if you download ahead of time a certain area, the area you're going to hunt, download it into your phone, and you can bring it up, and it'll show you right where you are, and you can kind of keep track of your positions and all of that. Anyways, excited to tell you about a partnership we formed with onX. So go to onx.com, and we got you a 20% discount. You punch in the promo code BWB, and you're going to get 20% off on your onX. All right, get down there and get those apps downloaded and get your chips for your GPS and get ready to hunt.
This is the Big Woods Bucks podcast. Come explore the big woods and timber in North America with your host, Maine master guide and deer tracking expert Hal Blood. Listen to Hal and co-hosts Lee Libby and Joe Cruzy as they unlock the secrets of big woods whitetails. Each episode will provide valuable insights in the tried and true system Hal has used for the last 40 years to scout, locate, and hunt mature big woods bucks. Listen and laugh as the crew discusses Hal's legendary adventures and learn how to apply a lifetime's worth of lessons from the big woods to your own hunting and outdoor adventures. Okay, welcome to the Big Woods Bucks podcast. I'm Joe Cruzy. I'm actually filling in for Hal today. I know that's kind of a letdown for everyone.
Not us.
Hal's on the road. Guys like Hal get calls in the middle of the night and say, if you want to go elk hunting, be at the airport at 10 o'clock in the morning. And the airport's like an 8-hour drive. So he took off and is westbound. So we'll see what he does out there this week. But anyway, I'm here with Mike Stevens.
Good morning.
And Lee Shantz.
Good morning.
We're going to talk today, cover last week's moose hunt. We're all a little bit off on our schedule. It was a little bit longer week than I think some of us expected, at least me anyway. So you guys all had a good moose week?
Yeah, it was tough weather-wise. We still ended up getting our moose, but boy, it was a lot of rain.
How many hunts did you have?
I just had 2 in my camp, and then one of my other guides guided out of another camp. But
okay, nice.
Yeah, we ended up, we got one moose on Monday that we had to pack out, and luckily it was about a mile pack, and we no more than got back to the trucks, and it just came down in buckets. It was raining sideways, so I told the guys in my truck, I'm glad I'm not standing out there over a moose with a headlamp on right now, because it was torrential.
What zone was that one in?
Zone 4.
That was in 4, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rain was fun that night.
Yeah, it was actually, it was too warm all day Monday, too. It was just, I think it was like 65 when we were packing the moose out. But we got him back to the tent camp, and we ended up, we threw a top over all the quarters. We had them in game bags and put the ice to them, and everything was fine. They left early the next morning, so it was all good.
And that one, did Did it respond to a call? Did you kill that one, Colin?
Yeah, every bull that we saw, Brett Patton, who guided for me, that was on Monday. He called that bull in, came right in on a rope, and killed that one. Then on Tuesday, I called in 3 different bulls. They all came to a call, and 2 of them had cows with them, but they still came in. And then the bull that we killed on Wednesday came into a cow call as well.
A little bit different experience than we had.
Yeah.
Maybe I got to take some cow calling lessons. We couldn't buy a response.
Tuesday night was the first time we heard a grunt, I think, right?
Yeah, maybe someone else did. Monday and Tuesday was rough for us. I mean, we figured we added up at the end of the week just from the 3 that were in my group. We added up what our phones were tracking, and we were around 40 miles walking for the week, and very few responses all week. I don't know if it was wrong place, wrong call, whatever it was. It was tough. I mean, we did get some action, and we called one in on a young bull, really young bull on Wednesday morning, which that seemed to be a hot morning. Wednesday morning.
That was the day, because that was the coldest day, too. It made a big difference, you know. But when we drove away from the camp Monday morning, there was 72 on my truck thermometer. And that's not moose weather. And most of you folks can figure that out. It's not deer weather. It's not anything weather, huh? So, I mean, it was a tough couple days there. But then Wednesday morning, it lit up, 39 degrees or 40 degrees or whatever it was. And they started hitting the ground that morning. So that's all it takes. You get the right weather, and just 24 hours is huge in the life of a moose, of whether they're receptive or they're not. And it's only a few hours that decides that. So, you know, you got to make sure you're out there no matter what. So Wednesday morning, we put all our marbles in that bag, and we made it work pretty good for Joe's camp there. We got 3, so.
I had my inReach on there, and all the guys had inReaches, and there was a 1-hour period on Wednesday morning when we called a bull in, little one, and Mike, I think, was the first one.
10 minutes to 7. Yep.
And then Matt did the same thing. He texted me. He had one within 5 minutes of that, and Chuck got one the same time. So that was a lot of action that morning. It was good to get a few on the ground.
Yeah. Faces were getting long at camp there Tuesday night when it was 40-mile-an-hour winds and pouring out.
I was more thinking along the lines of cooking. Me and my buddy Chris and Braden were sharing cooking, and we had 16 people there. And when you don't cook all the time, that's a lot to cook for twice a day there. So
yeah, it took them a while to prepare the chicken there. Was it chicken Tuesday night? Yeah, it was chicken. Took them a while.
How was it once it was done?
So it was awesome, but I had to entertain 16 guys while they were out cooking. So the only way I could do it was bourbon and war stories. So.
Well, I'm sure Matt helps you out. Matt's an entertainment in himself.
Yeah, he sure is.
Every camp should have a Matt Vining in there.
We ended up, actually, we switched things up a little bit. We got back so late on Monday when we packed the moose out, we didn't get back to camp till 11. So instead of cooking ribeyes on the grill like I was supposed to, we had some sandwiches and went to bed because we were all beat. So then on Tuesday and Wednesday, we had the big meals at noontime. It was warm during the middle of the day, so we'd come back in the middle of the day, and I'd throw some ribeyes on the grill and make the salads and all of that. So we started having our big meal in the middle of the day, and then when we get back at night, just have something light because we were getting back so late. But I don't know. That's the first time I've ever done that, but it actually worked out good. I might do that in the future too.
Well, I had a wedding at the lodge on Saturday before the hunt started, and it was a long stretch there between doing all that, and we were up, I don't know, till 12, 1 o'clock Saturday night. Then all the hunters came in Sunday, and we took a nap midday Monday. We went back to camp. I was beaten. Actually, it was a buddy of mine that I was guiding, so it wasn't any big deal to take a couple hours off and come back, which I always feel guilty doing. I feel like I got to be in the woods all the time, but not this week. We had most of our lunches back at camp. But anyway, we didn't really have this was the first year. We had a good run. We had 10 years of filling tags and not getting skunked, but this week was the week for us where we had myself and Eric didn't get his, although his hunter had his chance. It just wasn't able to connect.
Sometimes it's just like deer hunting. You got to be in the right place at the right time. I talked with a bunch of guides that I know that really, really struggled, but we probably just happened to find one good spot on Tuesday, that road that I called in the 3 bulls, and we saw 3 cows. When we went back on Thursday after we'd filled all our tags, one of my guides went to pick up the trail camera at the end of that road, and just walking in and out, he saw 4 more bulls and 4 more cows.
You are kidding.
So we ended up in 2 days on that road. On that road, we saw 7 bulls and 8 cows on that road in just 2 days. So I'm pretty sure that there won't be anybody else going in there. It's pretty remote, so I'm pretty sure next year if somebody gets his own spot. Yeah. So
wow.
Maybe that's why I was getting more response to calls too, because if you think about it, it's like guys that deer hunt out west. There's so many bucks and there's so much competition. It's a lot easier to grunt in a buck. In all the years I've been guiding deer hunters in Maine, I've grunted in maybe 2 or 3 nice bucks that my clients killed, where out west my bow hunters, they say, you can do it about every day. I think that's probably the same thing with moose. The more bulls you got in an area, the easier it's going to be to call them because of the competition. And so I think that's maybe why my experience was a little different than yours, because I just ran into a hot spot.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. We ended up the one close where I thought we were going to connect was on the last day at noon. We basically just broke it down to we were just going to strike out and walk and hit all, every good area that I could think of, and just hope to get into one's bedroom and get them fired up, which we did. And to anyone who hasn't heard a moose bark and get pissed off, it's fun. It's when you get in there and he's fired up, and usually in those situations you can make it happen if everything is right, and we did have everything right, but the wind switched on us and it was a standoff for probably 15 minutes, and thought it was going to happen, and he finally winded us, and I think he just walked away.
I ended up this year, it wasn't the bull that got mad at us. When we shot our bull, there were 2 beavers in front of us, and every time I cow called, the beaver was spraying us. He'd slap his tail every time I cow called, and we were getting soaking wet, but we didn't dare to move.
He was that close to you?
We were right beside the dam, standing in ankle-deep water, and every time I cow called, one of those 2 beavers would slap his tail, and then it made me nervous because all of a sudden the bull shut up. I had him coming right in on a rope. Every time I cow called, he grunted. But then when he got back to the back of the beaver dam, where I could hear him walking around in the woods, all of a sudden those beavers came unglued and the bull shut right up. But I think it made me a little nervous, but I think what happened was he just was looking for a way to get around the beaver bog, because he came out down on the lower dam, but we literally were soaking wet from the beavers spraying us. That was the first time I'd ever had that. That was kind of a cool experience.
I would say.
That's different. That's cool.
Do you think, so one thing I did notice about the bulls that were killed, like in our camp, everything was like a mid-40s type bull.
Lee and I was just talking about that.
And not, obviously there's a bunch of big bulls out there. There was a bunch of beautiful bulls killed. Congratulations to all those guys that got their bull. I think the age structure, we're starting to see maybe a result of the tick die-off, all those calves a few years back when they started going off. There's got to be some, because there's no doubt that there's fewer moose now than there was. I mean, that's not a question. We've lost a lot to the ticks. If there was as many moose as we had before, we'd see them driving around, just because there would be, they would be pushed out and they would be on the roads and everything else. I think my opinion is that the moose population is healthy, but there certainly is not the number of moose that we've experienced in the past, and it's a lot tougher than it used to be. What are your thoughts on that?
I just don't think you're going to shoot a lot of road moose anymore. I mean, in all the time that we spent up there, we saw very few from a drivable road, and when we left we actually stayed on Friday because it came down and poured buckets on Thursday, and I didn't want to tear down my big canvas tent in the rain. So when we left on Friday morning, the same road hunters that we'd been seeing all week, guess what? They were still there road hunting on Friday morning. Then when I got back to Skowhegan, I actually live in Cornville, but one of the selectmen in Cornville who's been on a lot of moose hunts, I heard from one of my guides, he put on 1,800 miles on his vehicle last week, and they saw one bull in 1,800 miles. So I think people are going to have to come to the realization that road hunting, you've already won the lottery once by getting your permit. Don't try to win the lottery again by getting your moose from the road. And I really do think, people do it, but it's a bad way to hunt moose. But I think that's good for us as guides because I never used to guide any resident Mainers. All of my clients were mostly from New York and Pennsylvania, but out-of-staters. I'm starting to guide a few Mainers now, and I think that's because people realize, hey, this isn't a canned hunt. It's something you're going to have to work for, and I think that's a good thing. It's good for the moose, and it's good for us.
Yeah, the game has evolved, huh? That's what's happened, and the riding around days are over. And we've been telling people that for a few years now, and it's finally sinking in with them that they get a long face by Wednesday or Thursday when you got 1,000 miles on your truck, and figure that out in dollars and cents when you're getting 10 miles to a gallon, on a woods truck. So yeah, I mean, the game's evolved to the fact you got to put your boots on the ground, and if you do, I think you'll find that there's more moose out there than you think. I mean, they're definitely back in now, and that's the way you got to hunt them. And if you think you're going to get a tag next year and you're going to go up there and ride around, don't do that to yourself. Just don't do that to yourself. It's not worth it.
And you don't have to. I see a lot of guys which is really cool, are watching videos. There's so much out there, learning how to call and getting out, because you hit the right moose. It doesn't matter what your call sounds like. He might come out. And so it's definitely worth, your odds are a lot better just picking a random winter road, finding some sign and trying to call, as opposed to riding around.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, I remember I said, not even that long ago, 10 years ago, and 15 years ago, it was really, a lot of moose around where you could drive around and you could every day see bulls, turn smaller ones down. No, we'll see a bigger one. And then later in the week, shoot a 54-inch bull out of the truck. And that was just the way it was done. And there's so much. And look, no one, even the Lee Cantar none of them know exactly what's going on. There's a lot of questions to it, and they're kind of, I think, in a way, throwing spitballs as far as, all right, let's take the moose population down some and see if that gets rid of the ticks. But in my mind, there's no question the numbers are definitely down. But again, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's unhealthy, because you get out there in the woods, it just blows your mind how much sign there is.
Yeah, having said that, when you get away from the roads and you hunt, like we hunt, you're still seeing plenty of moose. I think this week, weather-wise, it was warm, it was rainy, it was windy.
Was it one of the worst you've seen?
Yeah, in my 20 years of guiding, I would say it's probably as tough as any week that I'd had. And but I'm kind of looking forward now to see what happens, because they didn't kill a lot of moose, and we've had the warm weather. I was really nervous about the next season because it doesn't start until the 14th. We can't hunt until the 14th, which is really late. There's 2 weeks in between the seasons this year instead of one. But maybe, if we get some cold weather, we may have to change our tactics a little bit. I'm definitely going to, bull grunt and rake more than I'm going to cow call. But I've had, late October hunts where I still call them in with cow calls. But you never know. I try it, and then if it doesn't work, I switch to something else.
Yeah.
I've always had success with a cow call that late season, but I think it's more of a subtle thing. It's not, you just don't go blasting out, wandering around. You gotta find the moose, get in there with them, and the call has to be a little more subtle. And then, like Lee said, you get the horn out and tickle the trees and let them know there's a bull wandering around in there, and the success is a little higher that way. I scouted yesterday morning here in Zone 8, and it's a little behind here what we saw up north. The alders aren't raked here like they were up there, although they are raking them, but they haven't been doing it. And I had 2 bulls coming yesterday, and both of them hung up on me, wouldn't finish and wouldn't come in. So I think we're a little behind here what we saw up in northern Maine. Here in Zone 8, so maybe it'll help us carry over into that we got to wait 2 weeks, so maybe this will help us a little bit.
Do you think the numbers are a little less here also?
I don't think so. I think there's plenty of bulls out there. Yeah, we just had a lot of calves die this past winter. So Lee and I was talking before the podcast that in 3 years and 4 years, those ones that died would be the ones we'd be trying to kill. So let's see in 4 years really, what's going on and see if we do notice it. We notice it more than most folks because we're in the woods every day of the week. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be further north for the second season. I'm going to be up in Zone 1, so I'm hoping that it's not passed, but whatever. I always tell, I raised my kids this way too. I always told them that hard work will overcome about everything.
Yep.
So if your clients start getting discouraged, as a guide, it's your responsibility to say, hey, look, I'll work for you as hard as I can to make it get done.
Yep.
And I think they understand that.
I overheard you saying something about moose that were tagged on Friday. What was that?
It was incredible. We tagged our moose at Pittston Farm, which is a really big tagging station. I've been in there before and seen 100 moose on the board. When we came out on Friday afternoon, it was I think around 2 or 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. They'd only tagged 14 moose, and 2 of them were ours. And the one that my client got, which was the smallest bull that I've taken in recent memory, it was over 40 inches, but, we usually shoot for 50. This was the smallest bull I've taken in a lot of years. It was the second biggest bull that they tagged there. That really surprised me. The biggest bull they tagged, I guess, was 42 inches. Now, they may have tagged some more, on Friday night and Saturday that were bigger, but it was definitely...
Wow.
Yeah, it was down.
Yeah, it's... In my mind, the jury is still out on exactly, what's going on with the herd. It's hard to think that just weather did that. That has kept the numbers down so much. But I guess you can't get a full picture until the season's over and you see exactly how many were tagged and where they were tagged and how many hunters gave up. There was a lot of hunters that went home early that we heard about that, by Wednesday or Thursday, they just, they were basically riding around. And if you ride around that much, and I had quite a bit of time up there between going up, setting cameras ahead of time and setting up camp and all that stuff, and never saw a moose on the road. And I know Matt came up, he came back and tagged one on Wednesday and then came back up to camp, midnight, traveling from Jackman all the way up to where we were camped up. And he didn't see, he saw one small bull, I think. But anyway.
Normally, what we might find this year, it might be a flip-flop. They usually have a lot better success rate in the first season than the second, just because they're usually easier to call on that first.
Yep.
And they haven't been hunted for a year, so they're not as skittish. But we may, I don't know, time will tell, but maybe that second season will be better than what we thought. I've seen years in deer season the same way. If the first 2 weeks, if it's really warm, you guys that are weekend warriors, that go out, they say they like to hunt deer. If they go out the first couple of weeks and it's warm and they're not seeing much and they kind of give up, it's the hardcores that stay at it, that get one on Thanksgiving week. And we've had years like that where deer season started out warm, the kill was way down, and then towards the end of the season, the guys that are really out there going after them will get it done.
Yeah.
Mother Nature rules. That's the way it goes.
Mike Stevens out.
That's right. And as good as we are, she still rules.
Well, I know we've been talking a lot about the Onyx lately, and I'm just sitting here thinking that was a tool that was really, really helpful. It was nice to just pull up because we did so much walking, and we had to we have our regular areas up there that we know well, and we've never had to, we go back, maybe 6 or 8 spots that you go into every year and you fill your tags and you're done. Well, we had to get out and explore a little more, and it was nice having that Onyx, pull it up, satellite imagery. I was in the off-grid mode because we had no cell signal, and it does work well. It's a nice tool up there.
That's one of the things we might want to mention too, before we go too much further on the Onyx. Scouting is huge. We put a lot of miles on scouting before we start hunting, no matter what zone we're in. And we set cameras. We spend a lot of time walking and looking for sign. I mean, That's huge. That's something everybody needs. You need to add that to your bag of tricks. Scouting is huge now. You do not scout from a Dodge or a Ford or a Chevy, okay? You scout with your boots on in the woods on the winter road. So you better add that to your bag of tricks when your next moose tag comes around.
I agree with you, but I will say the movement, like when we first started going up, like setting cameras,
No, it was too warm.
Yeah, they just aren't moving.
No.
They don't even, like this year, a week or 10 days before season is when you could really start seeing some decent signs. But before that, there wasn't much.
Yeah, people got to remember they're not really brown; they're black. And if the sun's out, even if it's only in the 60s, if the sun's out, they got to be somewhere close to water. I can't imagine, as bad as I sweat when it's 60 and sunny. You can imagine a 1,000-pound bull that's black as tar. Yeah, he's going to be near some water somewhere.
Yeah, we were kind of thinking that too, and so we brought it was something we've been wanting to try and wanted to do a little boat hunting, get into some places that no one else would get into. So we loaded up. Hal loaned me his 20-foot tripper, and we got 3 of us in there and all of our gear. Well, a spruce tree had fallen on it in the winter, so Hal had patched it in the bottom, and we kind of looked at the patch before we went, and Hal's not here, so we told him we were going to rag on him a little bit.
Can't wait.
Hal is excellent at, like, if you go look at his house and the building he's done and everything, he really does a nice job on everything he does. He didn't learn too much in the boat repair school we went to because it was rough looking.
Now, was it a duct tape patch?
It was not duct tape. No, he used. Now he still swears he's going to be saying, "Oh no, it'll hold fine," but it was a big hole that it blew the plastic out, and so he just put it back and epoxied the edges of it. Well, if you can imagine, it was right in the center of the boat. So once we had a little motor on there on the canoe, and once you start going down the lake, all that pressure is pushing against that, and we only got about 75 yards offshore, and it was seeping water. And I said, if we get up on plane and that thing blows, we're going down fast. Like, there was no bailing or anything like that. So we were real excited to go try this spot out and go where no one had been, and it was all in the water, and we ended up turning around and coming back. We didn't want to take a chance.
Oh, you got to remember, too, you're talking about the guy on one moose hunt that held his ex in with ratchet straps till he got back from the moose hunt. So, yeah, that's a quick fix.
He held us what?
He had his ex on I think it was on the Ram Charger.
Yeah,
I can't remember, but he held it in with the ratchet straps. It broke the U-bolts off and ended up
his
holding
ex?
it.
Yeah, we just told that story. He blames it on me, remember? Like he blames everything on me.
Now, having said that, if you're going to if you have to, build something out in the woods because something broke, there's probably nobody that I'd rather have than Hal. But yeah, sometimes those quick fixes aren't that good.
Yeah, he's got a backup plan he's going to do on it. He's going to put some sheet metal and rivets on it. So
his father, God bless him, I miss Pop, but his father he used to make the best statement to Hal. Hal'd be fixing something and he'd be swearing and banging tools and throwing stuff, and Hal's dad would say, "You know how to get that fixed, don't you?" And Hal would say, "What? Take it to somebody that knows how to do it." The guy down the road called the garage.
Well,
that was his wisdom to Hal.
Well, it was. We were looking forward to it, and it didn't pan out. But maybe we saved Hal from going down in the lake sometime.
I didn't hear that story about the canoe.
Oh, yeah. We
that.
had everything in there too. We had our pack frames and guns and backpacks, and 3 of us in the boat. And it's actually, I love the boat. You have one that long, Lee?
I do,
20-footer?
But mine it's actually an old cedar and canvas 20-footer.
Oh, wow.
It was made by the Skowhegan Canoe Company back when Skowhegan had a canoe company.
Cool.
It's 1946. But that's what I guide my fly fishermen out of it. If I got some high-end clientele, I guide some fly fishermen. But I don't know that I'd take that on a moose hunt because that thing is heavy.
Yeah,
but the trippers are nice. My dad had I think it was an 18-foot tripper when I was a kid. The thing that's nice about those is that Kevlar or whatever it is they're made out of, it's lighter than some materials. And they're a good canoe for sure. You know, they'll carry a lot of weight. And, well, I mean, if you had you and two other guys and all your gear, I don't know how big the other guys were, but you got to figure you had some poundage in that thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were freighted pretty good. And Hal, he promised me, he said, you can fit a moose in there, the three of you and all your gear, and you won't have any problem. So we were hoping to test it, but not with a hole in the bottom.
Need a war canoe for that.
Yeah. So he's on the highway right now. We talked to him just before this, and he's got those. We just started a partnership with Yokohama, so he's got his new set of sneakers on his truck. He's got those Geolander MTs, and he said surprisingly enough they're pretty quiet, and he liked how they were up north. Anything that lasts. I towed a trailer. I hate doing it, but with a big camp I had to, and one of the spindles is tweaked a little bit, so I had a tire that was wearing out pretty quick. It was pretty much bald, and shockingly enough, it made it all the way up and all the way back because those roads up there are brutal on tires.
I ended up, before the hunt even started, like I said, my guys this year were Mainers, and they were from down south, but once, you know, I knew that I'd booked them and where I was going to go and made up my mind where I was going to set up camp, they wanted to go up and do some scouting on their own, which I told them, I said, it's too early, you're probably not going to see anything, but if you want to go up for a ride, go ahead. But you want to remember that that shale up there on those roads is rough on tires. So one of the guys bought his wife's brand new, I don't know if it's brand new, but a fairly new SUV, and it had good tires on it, but they weren't 10-plies. And I think before they got back, they'd had 3 flats. Luckily, the guy at the gate had some patches and a compressor for him because they'd never made it. So, yeah, it's you want to have good tires. And I know Hal said that those tires that he got were good in the mud and quiet on the tire. Yeah. So that's a good combination.
It's just a start. I mean, he's got the whole season ahead of him, so we'll see how they do with everything else. But so far, so good. But, yeah, it's rough. It's rough on everything up there. We had 2 days before the hunt, Eric, who was guiding with us, he's got a Toyota and bent a strut just on a random rut in the road. He was turning around or something, and I don't know how it did it.
Yeah.
Hey, Hal here. Just want to take a minute to talk about the hunting club. And you can join by going right online at bigwoodsbucks.com. But anyways, I've got all my information is going in there, and it's a place where you can get together and look at my films, tips, writings, and all of that. And the best part is there's forums for you to communicate with, you know, the rest of the club members, talk about Big Woods stuff and all of that. So anyways, $36 a year, cheaper than getting a Starbucks once a day. So join up and hope you see you on there. Hey everyone, Hal here. Just wanted to take a minute to talk about the Woodman Arms muzzleloader. We got them all set on the website to build your own or buy your Big Woods Bucks model, either one you want to do. But anyways, we've tested it a lot, and I can honestly say it's the most accurate muzzleloader on the market, best to carry in the Big Woods or anywhere else at 5.5 pounds. You can't go wrong with it. So get on there and check it out.
It wasn't good.
No.
Good thing we had a couple of mechanics in the camp that could fix stuff.
So I had the wedding going on here, and I had to leave before that. And fortunately, we were somewhere where I could fly into. It was probably as small a place as I want to go into. I had never gone in, and guys that do it all the time, they do it. No, you know, they wouldn't even think twice about the pond. But for me, it's under 3/4 of a mile. It's like, I think it was like 0.6 of a mile. For me, that's tight. You know, I don't like to take chances. So anyway, we flew in there and brought a strut up. But changing a strut in the woods, seemingly easy job. Took there was 3 or 4 people gathered around that, and Eric was sweating it just because the hunt was starting soon. And
he always seems to be
Sunday.
He always seems to be a problem child for you.
If you only knew.
If you only knew. It makes for great camp talk. I got to say, man, this camp, you know, that's really it's half the fun of going up there is the characters and everyone in camp. You know, it's first of all, having that many people around that have never met each other, and everyone meets when they get there, and so you've got people from all over, and different personalities and different senses of humor. It's always interesting, and this was a really good camp this week. It was fun. Eric being a major part of that, and of course Matt with his animated storytelling.
Yeah, it was a great camp. We had a good time.
But anyway, Hal shot a beautiful bull. Well, his client did. We always say Hal or Mike but his client, that was a gnarly looking bull.
Yeah, it looked like an old timer.
Oh yeah.
Really, he said it didn't have a lot of spread, but the pictures that I saw looked pretty heavy and gnarly looking.
Yeah, it was a mid 40 something, 44, 45, but holy cow, you'd never pass that one up. No. That was an awesome looking bull. No. Yeah, and Nick got one. He was guiding for Hal. He got one down there right by us, and so overall a great week, and looking forward to the next one. But beyond that, we got deer season.
We're in deer mode now. We got 1 week of moose coming up still, all of us. But when I was scouting yesterday for bulls, I was on deer mode too, and I saw a lot of sign too. By the way,
what you saw something on the way up you were talking about, didn't you? When you were going up for the moose hunt?
Yeah, we saw a real big buck on the Baker Lake Road. He was a real big one. He would have scored up in the 140s. Beautiful buck. Yeah. And one of those things, he just stood next to the road, let us drive right up to him, and stood there looking at us. And he had a couple
no
pieces.
No pictures or video?
No, happened too quick. Happened too quick for old guys. But he had a little velvet left on his horns there. But he was a real nice buck. And we actually saw a lot of deer sign up in that zone. And as did Lee. Lee said he saw a lot of deer. So
Eric got a beauty on camera. It must have been at least 130. Really nice tall buck. Yeah,
and for people that are listening to the podcast, if you're from out in the Midwest or if you're from other places where 130 or 140 inch rack doesn't sound all that impressive, in Maine, a good average mature buck up north is only going to have 130 or 140 inches. Probably at the best time in his life. But you're going to have a 250-pound buck underneath it too a lot of times. So I found like the areas that we go to up there where we're hunting moose or deer, 130, 140-inch buck in Maine, that's a good buck. It's probably going to be heavy. It's not going to be as wide and as tall as some places, but it's going to be a heavy, gnarly-looking thing, and it's going to have plenty of protein underneath it.
Absolutely.
The one we saw was well over 200 pounds. He was a big one.
I have a hard time getting away from right around here during deer season, but every year I go up, I mean the woods up there are just conducive to tracking if you can get on a track, just because the cutting practices are so much less, and not as
destructive.
Yes,
that was the word.
That was the word I was looking for. I was trying to be diplomatic about it, but it's way different. I mean, the hardwood stands and the mixed growth stands up there are beautiful. I mean, you can see in them, but they're not. They're still areas that the deer are going to travel through, but you could actually see to shoot, as opposed to some of the stuff that we deal with around here where it's just so thick. I mean, you get into some areas and there's no way if you get close to them that you're going to shoot them in there. It's just too much of a mess.
The woods crews up there now, they must have got on them about being a little more thrifty when they leave, because what they're doing now is the wood yards where they keep the wood, they have to level them right over really, really nice now, and they're planting them with clover, and that tends to bring in a few deer when you get up in that country and all of a sudden there's a big field of clover out in the middle, So I know that the wood yards that I saw scouting up there for moose were full of deer because of the clover, huh?
Yeah, we ended up, I trained a new guide this year, a young kid from down Lewiston area. He's been a great deer hunter his whole life, and I used to run into him up by my camps in Pleasant Ridge, but he got his guide's license, and he just wanted to come along on the hunt and see how we do things, but really, really good deer hunter. That road that we saw, well, we were in there 2 days and saw 14 moose in the 2 days that we were in there. those cuts.
That is, after experiencing, I don't mean to interrupt you, after experiencing the week we just experienced, me personally, that's amazing to have that many moose in one spot. And maybe that was a thing. Maybe that was the way it was everywhere, and we just never found that spot. But that's a lot of moose to see.
Yeah, well, I think one thing, it's kind of funny. Last year we shot one of the best bulls that we ever shot since I've had Chance's guide service, right in the same area, but further down the road. But this one particular spot, I never even went in there last year. It was there last year, and I never even went in. But on a hunch, I went in there this year, and the cuts were new enough so that they were full of feed, but you wouldn't go down in there unless you had a reason to, and because I had a reason to. But when we were walking the road before we had that torrential rain on Monday, it was a shale road with, it's got that gray dust in it, so the tracks show up pretty good, and there hadn't been any rain up there for a while. We saw the road was full of moose tracks, but I saw a deer track in there that was probably, 3.5, 4 inches. It was a buster. And I told this young guy that I was training, I said, man, I think you could hunt deer. I said, look at that cut. I said, you could get around in that cut. But I said, look at the open hardwoods behind it. And then if you looked off to you, it would have been southeast, I think. They hadn't cut that side of the road yet. And it was some woods you could walk around in. If you went in there and just found where a buck had come into those cuts and fed at night, you definitely could go in there and hunt deer. It was a nice looking area, and I really think that another thing that helps in that area, I think, is they're putting in those serpent operations.
Yep.
And wherever they're doing those serpent operations, instead of going in and just cutting everything that's bigger around than your wrist, they're leaving a lot of maples. And even if they cut it, they selectively cut it. But there's places up there where the woods just look better than they do in this particular area.
No question. I mean, it's a shame, really, because you walk around and it's the same. It's the same everything except for the cutting practices. And I agree with you that it seems like the sugar bushes that are becoming more popular and they're popping up, that they're actually putting value on the live trees now,
right?
Instead of just going to the mill. So I think that's a real positive. Although I always wonder with all the SERP lines, how many moose get tangled up in them.
Well, I don't know about moose, but I got a story for you, and it'll sound far-fetched, but years ago, up on the Canadian border north of Jackman, I was guiding a deer hunter, and we had tracking snow, and we tracked a buck, and we tracked it up on a side hill where there was a sugar bush, and the smallest blue line there that they use, up at the top of the mountain, and then it goes into bigger stuff. But a buck actually stopped, made a scrape under that, and used that line like a licking branch. You could see where he'd stopped and reached up, licked on that thing, and made a scrape right on, which I thought was really strange, but it happened, and I had a client with me. So I said, that's the first time I've ever seen that. But the deer definitely, they don't mind those lines.
No.
A moose being taller and everything, they're probably destructive. Maybe they shy away from it, but the deer like those sugar bush.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting back to that, yeah. We both like one sugar bush together, Lee and I. I'm going to tell you where it is, by the way. But
Lee and I like one sugar bush together.
We know one sugar bush. We both like to hunt. So.
That sounded a little bit, this is supposed to be a family-oriented show, Mike.
Did that sound that good?
Mike always goes to the...
I was trying to say it subtle.
Low-hanging fruit.
I was trying to be subtle. But anyway, getting back to the moose part, they very seldom get tangled up in them. Very seldom. Don't know whether they just like Lisa's, they just kind of shy, stay away from it or whatever. But
yep.
I actually work on a sugar line, and I was removing the taps in the spring, and 3 moose are in the lines just wandering through. Of course, when I came down over the hill, I spooked them, and they ran off, and they were right in the lines, the lateral lines, the small blue stuff there, and only one of them tangled up. The rest of them made it out of there like. They just ducked and went, but one of them he hooked onto one lateral. He dragged it off there quite a ways before it got off his horn there. But
must be constantly going around with down trees and that sort of thing.
Yeah, you get more trouble with that, and you do the critters. Yeah. And the critters, they don't chew the lines.
They must hate windstorms up in the sugar houses.
Those microbursts raise hell pretty good, when those go through. But but the animals, very very little damage from the critters. Believe it or not,
Well, if you think about it, how often have you called in a big bull, and when he was coming in, like he wanted to breed, you can hear his antlers just smashing and crashing everything in his way, and you're telling your client, boy, this sounds like a good one. But then if he gets in close and he wins you or he gets suspicious, next thing you know, he's gone, and you don't know where he went, and you don't know how he got out of there.
It's amazing.
I know.
Yeah.
They must tilt their head just right, and I guess they get used to having all that bone on their head, and they know what to do with it.
Right.
Because like you said, when they're coming, they're intentionally making that noise. They will break everything they can possibly get their feet on. And they actually, biologists told me, they actually splay their feet to break things. Sue told me that. And anyway,
It's interesting.
yeah, they intentionally make that noise. But like Lee says, they wind you. You wonder where they went. You don't even hear them leave, huh? It's crazy.
I'm familiar with that lack of sound. That's the other problem I got too. Is
I'll teach you.
Moose hearing is like probably the most important thing when it comes to moose hunting, and unfortunately, mine's been getting worse over the past couple of years. So
No kidding.
yeah, and the guys that were with me they got supersonic hearing, so that was no problem there. But for myself, it's definitely getting tougher, And I remember when I first started doing this, I could hear every grunt coming in, breaking every tree, and now they got to get a bit closer for me.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
My wife always asks me, because she's been out in the woods with me a few times, and I hear stuff that nobody else hears, and then she wonders why when I'm watching TV and she hollers in from the kitchen why I don't hear her. I don't know what that is, but
Yeah. I got a pretty good idea, but
selective.
mine accuses me of doing that, but I've got a legitimate excuse. I really have a hearing issue. But anyway, with the moose hunting especially, I mean, one low grunt can be the difference in the hunt. And so anyone listening out there, if there's any hearing experts that know of a real hearing aid that works, because most of them are junk.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, every time I'd say something about it, my buddy Chris would go, what? Just messing with me all week.
My client was
Bastard.
deaf.
Yeah. Well, actually, I talked to him because he had. Did the hearing aids he have make any difference?
Well, they made a great difference, but they kept going dead, and you couldn't charge them. Huh?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we were down to sign language there near the end.
Whatever it takes.
Him going, me giving him the finger. We were down to that.
He told me the brand that he had, and he said he was real happy with them. So I got to check him out. But listening to someone talk in a room and listening to a moose grunt at 100 yards is a different story.
Yeah, they get racking those trees out there. You can almost tell how big their racks is. You get that tone, huh, Lee? Those big horns make a tone, and I've many times I've told my client, we're shooting that bull when he gets here. I could just tell by the tone of them horns hitting that tree. Yeah. Sure enough, they'd be a keeper, huh?
Hal and Chris are going to be upset. We're talking too much about moose hunting.
Yeah, we got to get back on the deer
let's
track.
talk about moose hunting.
When we got ready to hunt for the day, we're going to do what we want. The guru is gone.
I tried to steer us toward the deer thing. We were on that for a minute.
We started.
And we got back off again, but yeah.
Have you ever hunted up north for deer?
Yeah, I actually, most of my deer hunting before I started Shands' Guide Service was up in the Cocajo area between Cocajo and the Golden Road. But, I've done a considerable amount up there. And then, because I've done from here in the Jackman area to the Canadian border. But I've never hunted deer like up towards the Realty Road. The moose zones that we do, like zones 1, 2, 4, and 5, all close to the Realty Road. I never have hunted deer up there. I know that in certain places they're pretty thin, but they're like in pockets.
Right.
You gotta find those pockets. But where I was in 4 this last week, I told that new guide that I was training, I was like, I can come up here. I've seen enough deer sign, especially if you had snow on the ground. I tell all my clients they're worried about not seeing a lot of tracks. Once you get the snow, I don't care if I'm not seeing many, as long as I'm seeing some good ones. It only takes 1 or 2. It's actually easier to track where there's fewer deer, as long as there's some big ones.
It's also much flatter up there as far as for tracking. So it's, terrain's nice too, but as far as walking all day, and you don't have a whole lot of hills up there compared to here, anyway.
Yeah, where I was hunting moose wasn't too far from. I've had some conversations with Lanny and Lane, the other Benoit family members over the years, and they used to hunt deer up there in that section where I was hunting moose.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Yep, shot some good bucks up there back, because that was a hot spot back in the 80s. So, because there was a lot of hot spots in the 80s. That's
right.
When that mechanized logging first came in and they opened up clear cuts. And I can remember talking with some of my early clients that they used to always go up on Thanksgiving week. And, back then you were getting quite a lot of snow Thanksgiving week. So a lot of those deer were headed toward their migration trails. And it didn't matter even after they made those clear cuts. I mean, I'd hear stories about these guys, and it's kind of too bad really, but they'd find little islands out in these clear cuts and set a bunch of guys up and just wait. They weren't even deer trackers, but those deer were so used to using those migration trails that even after they made the clear cuts, they'd go right through the middle of them. Right in midday, they'd go right through the middle of them. And you just basically had to be a good shot. But, in the early to mid-'80s, a lot of the country up around there was just getting opened up, mechanized logging, and it was great.
I bet it was.
One of Larry's stories there about spending the night in the woods there, that happened on where you were moose hunting, actually.
And then there's silence.
Thanks, Mike.
What do you mean? I mean, that's just a road. You weren't anywhere near. You're the one that gave it away. See, why do I get blamed for this?
We're gonna have Chris go back and edit that out. He is right, though. It's a road about 50 miles long. So, have you spent much time up there, Mike, deer hunting? Or are you usually just right around Jackman?
No, just south of there I deer hunted. And we go up there muzzleload a week still. We still go up there. We don't.
Oh, you go up where?
Yeah, we don't.
Goes up with that crew.
We don't go quite as far north as we were, but we're in that area. Yeah. Once the snow flies up there, it's a lot of fun, and the migration routes you get to know them after a while. Yeah. But deer mode. Let's get on it.
Yeah.
Get out there and start scouting.
We mentioned Hal's not here, but also we're missing one Mr. Lee Libby. I
didn't notice.
Yeah. he's noticeably absent. So I called him yesterday. Hey, we got to get together. I'm too busy. I can't make it over. And so, all right, don't worry. We'll go without you. But he did say that his film made it into the New Hampshire Film Festival now.
Oh, did it? I was wondering. Yeah.
It's doing well in that world, so I don't know what that means for the release. With all this build-up, though, I hope people aren't let down and, following. And it's a great film, but, man, we built it up bigger than a multi-million-dollar blockbuster.
Lee will never let you down. That's one thing Lee will not do.
Well, he's not sitting here right now, so I don't know about that.
He'll get even with us when this is over.
One of the things Mike just mentioned, I don't know how you guys have been pushing it on the podcast, but a lot of the members of Big Woods Bucks, we just got those Woodman Arm muzzleloaders. Mike mentioned muzzleloader season. I got to tell you, I can't wait to use mine. I'm looking forward to. That's about the only time I get to hunt is muzzleloader season because I'm busy guiding deer hunters myself. I thought, you know what? And Hal's not here, so I'm going to bust on him for this. He asked me if I would guide, now that he's back in the outfitting business. He asked me if I would guide, and I said, well, I'll give you the first week because you're more likely to have snow up in Jackman than I am where I am. So I said, I'll give you the first week, and then I got my own clients after that. So a couple weeks ago, he calls me and said, boy, he said, you might get paid the first week and not have to guide. And I was like, why is that? And he told me the story. We both felt kind of bad, but the guy had a family situation and wasn't going to be able to get away. So I felt bad for him, but then I told my wife, I said, I can't believe it. I might have Hal might pay me for the week, and then I'll get to hunt. I was so looking forward to that. But when he called me Friday night, he said, I put it out there. He said, I already got you another hunter. So,
yeah.
I'm guiding that first week up here, but I'm looking forward to being in camp with all you guys. Are you guiding that first week?
I'm guiding.
Here we go. This is a good one.
All right, so the new guy, I'm the new guy now. You guys have been guiding with Hal for years. The new guy made a mistake of saying, yeah, whatever, Hal, just whatever week you want to put me on, that's fine. So he got me for 4 weeks. And I love how you guys are how you're cracking up, Mike. Well, Mike knows.
We all did it 20 years ago,
yeah.
Joe.
So I'm going which I'm never going to complain about being in the woods for 4 weeks, but then I'm going to hunt myself on muzzleloader week. So.
Yeah, so you're looking forward to using that Woodman Arms too, yeah.
And I think Hal is going to use it on the elk hunt. He took that with him, yeah. So he's gonna shoot it with the muzzleloader. So that should be pretty cool.
I'm looking forward to using. The biggest thing I'm looking forward to is I've never used it, but after Timmy Boldick got me the gun and everything, he told me what to use, and everybody's been raving about that Blackhorn 209 powder. Yep. And I'm really looking forward to using that because I've got a couple of my clients, big-time muzzleloader hunters, and they said once you use that stuff, you'll never go back. That stuff is, it's almost like smokeless powder. You don't have to clean it as much, and you don't have to, worry about it gunking up your barrel. I can remember when I first started hunting with my old 50 caliber Hawk and black powder. After you shot that thing 3 or 4 times, it was pretty rough trying to drive a bullet back down the bore.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. That and the other thing I've still got my old 50 caliber Hawken, but I can remember the first time I ever shot at a running deer with that. You don't realize it, but everything's like in slow motion. If you're really focused like I am, I can remember the whole action when I pulled the trigger. It was like snap, click, bang, boom.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that even though I knew enough to lead the deer, I'm sure I shot way behind him. And I thought to myself, this is going to be different than, throwing up my 99 Savage, pushing off the safety and having it go pow. Yep. It was literally, there was like 3 different motions there. And I was like, that weren't good.
Speaking of which, I've got to bring one over to you. Hal and I were talking about the other day, and I knew that you were the quote-unquote house expert on the 99. So I've got one that I had picked up a long time ago that the safety is messed up on it.
Is it got a tang safety or the lever safety?
It's got the tang.
Yeah. Yeah, I can take a look at that for you. I've got some of both. But.
It's I forget. I paid it was cheap, like $100 for it. It was in a pawn shop or something. Yeah. I thought, how can I pass that up?
I can remember back when 99s, because I've been using them my whole life, but back when I first got out of high school, you could buy them all day long for $200, $250. Nice ones, pretty nice ones.
Yeah.
And I think what happened, once all the really good Winchesters got bought up, and then guys thought, them 99 Savages are a nice gun. So, yeah, I've seen the price. I just ended up, I got one in 358 last year, which is one of the tough calibers to get. A really good caliber for Maine, good moose gun, good deer gun. But, boy, I go to the gun auctions pretty regular, and if you get one in really good shape like mine is in 358, those things are inching up towards $2,000.
Wow.
One in 358. Yeah, they're tough.
How heavy is that?
Mine is a light one. It's the actual model number. It's something that they made in the 70s. They call it a 99 358. So it's got a straight grip stock, and it's got a butt plate on the back. It's the only Savage that really actually came through with a soft butt pad, and it's got a little more wood on the front end than it needs to. But I wouldn't think it weighs much over 7 pounds. But you probably wouldn't want it. Some of my 99s are under 7, but in that 358, I don't think you'd want it much lighter.
Yeah, that was my question. Why, you see these super lightweight guns in big calibers, and they kill on both ends, and it's nice, especially with something like how hard is it to get ammo for that?
It's not bad now because Hornady, I just bought some. I went over to I don't even know what they call the gun shop in Newport, but I stopped in Newport, and they had brand new Hornady ammunition. It's 200 grain Hornady interlocks, and it was, I don't know, $37.99 or something like that. So, I mean, not that it's cheap compared to an 08 or an 06, but if you want to,
that's not bad at all.
For 358,
really.
That wasn't bad at all.
I was buying ammo for the 338 before the moose hunt, and that's expensive stuff.
Yeah.
Depending on what you go with.
Yeah. Stop buying it for them Weatherby calibers and see how you like it.
Yeah, I'll pass. So is this the first time that you've, this coming season, that you'll be hunting with the Woodman?
Yeah. I just got mine. I'm pretty lucky. I'm glad that I mentioned something because it almost got away from me. But when we get the Big Woods buck stuff, I always get number 2. Like the Schrade knives that we had, Hal gets number 1 and I get number 2. When we had the 7600 pumps that Remington made, Hal got number 1 and I got number 2. The other thing that was nice is we're both lefties, so they swapped the left-handed safeties out for us before we got them. So when I heard about the Woodman Arms, I asked Hal about it, and he said, I was going to give that one to Steve, but he said, if you want number 2. So, Yeah, it was a good thing that I spoke
Nice.
up. I mean, I like Steve, but of all my friends, I love myself the most.
Yeah. I'm pulling for you to get the number 2.
Yeah, I got it.
All those Hal's on a fancy plane with Steve heading out west right now, so maybe he should got the number 2.
Maybe he will after all.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I haven't heard anything lately on the 7600s, the limited run. Are you getting number 2 on those?
Yeah, I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
Yep, on the 35 Wayland.
Yeah, nice. Hey guys, Joe here. Wanted to take a few minutes to talk about Lake Parlin Lodge. We're a 4-season lodge located just south of Jackman. We've got cabins, lodge rooms, mini lodge. We're a big snowmobile destination in the winter, full restaurant, bar, all the amenities that you need for your trip. Open all obviously through the summer, right on the lake. Kayaks, canoes, all included with the cabin. We also do a lot of weddings, so if you're looking for a destination wedding, we can do a wedding up to 200 people. And of course, we've got our hunting season, moose season, deer season. So check us out. We're at lakeparlinlodge.com.
I don't know why. I don't need another gun. My wife, though, is at the point where I have so many, she doesn't care. So that's a good place to be in, though, really.
Mine's at the point where she doesn't know. Like, it's all just the same, There's just, and I'm the same way. Every time I get one like that, I think I don't even use, half the ones I have, because you have your favorites that you use for everything. But I always say I have more than I need, but not as many as I want.
Right.
So.
Well, the other thing is, as long as the government doesn't take them away from us, they are good investments.
They're going to have a hard time taking away
That's
guns.
my word. That's the word I use with my hunting. I go, honey, it's an investment. This gun is an investment.
Yeah.
I've yet to cash in on any of those investments. But
my trade I did with Hal, and my buddy that was here a few days ago, I grabbed out one of the it's the Mannlicher that I got from Hal.
Oh yeah, that's a nice gun. I've seen that.
I traded him my Marlin 39A lever action and 22, and it was a gun that years ago I think I paid a couple $100 for, and they really went up in value. Those things were. I was actually shocked, because when Hal heard I had it, he said, "Want to trade?" I said, "What do you got?" "Well, how about that Mannlicher?" "You like?" "Yeah." I said, "I'll trade." Didn't take me long, and so I got home and started looking at the values, and I still think I did better. But when you want something, you want something. And Hal wanted that Marlin.
Yeah, I think they stopped. Probably one thing that drove the value up on those, I think after Remington bought Marlin out, I think they'd stopped making the 39s for a while, didn't they?
Yep. And like the one I had, I went back and looked, traced the serial number and everything, and I found 700, 750 is about where the value was on it, which for a lever action 22 is a lot.
Right.
And it was in really, really nice condition. But
that 22 you stole off of me this summer, I think you got a good
Yeah.
buy on that too.
I don't know if I call it stealing, but I do appreciate a good deal.
it had to be
I showed
steel.
him that one too, the takedown. That's a cool gun.
That's a neat little gun. Almost about half the guns that in the early 1900s that you see that you really like the looks of and think, boy, that's a good design or whatever. Boy, John Browning made most of them. He made a lot of nice guns, really nice guns.
Yeah, I know. Hal always rags me for it, but I'm a big Browning fan.
Yeah.
He bleeds Remington, so he won't go any other direction. But I like Brownings. I like Rugers. I think they all have their place.
Yeah, you shoot what you're comfortable with. The reason why I love 99s is it's what my dad hunted with. It was my first rifle. I did find out, though, that, I'm left-handed, and when I was a young kid, the safety was awkward for me. It doesn't really bother me now, but once I got one with that tang safety, I do like the rotary magazines and some of the older features. My pet gun is it's a 250 3000, which I think a lot of people think is light on deer, and it's definitely not too big for sure, but I hand load 120 grain Nosler petitions in it, which you can do in mine. It's got a 1 in 10 twist barrel, but it's got the straight stock and Snable fore end, and that tang safety works good for a lefty like me. And I've shot a lot of big deer with that gun, and I can't see that it was any different than shooting with a 308 or not. But
I like tang safeties.
Yeah, they're nice.
They're quick and intuitive, and you get used to them. I mean, I've always done if some trigger guard safeties are some are in front and some are in back, and you start messing around shooting too many different guns, and you can screw that up. Then you got the Ruger.
Yeah, they're like a three-position now.
Yeah. But the Tang to me is the most comfortable. But
I was lucky too. We were talking about the Woodman arm gun there that they swapped the safety out for me, so it's got, it works from the left side now like it's supposed to for me. So yeah, they can just switch them over. Some guns you can just, I think, take the same safety and switch them over, but some of them you have to get a different one. So I like the way that carries. Boy, it's nice, and it kind of reminds me of like a Model 94 Winchester where you hold it right at the balance point. It's so slim and everything, and boy, that Woodman arm muzzleloader, right where you hold on to it where the balance point is good, it cradles right in your hand good, and with that, I think it's probably because I'm getting older, but that fiber optic front sight starting to look better and better to me all the time.
It's a really I've scoped mine, and but even with the scope, it's a great fit for carrying. That's one of the nicest things about it is how it carries. I mean, just natural. But anyway,
did we have any questions from our listeners this week? No.
Well,
I don't know. Sit here and listen to you guys all day.
There is a question. However,
here we go.
It comes along with a picture.
Oh, is that the rubbing?
And so it doesn't do much good on the podcast. Yeah.
That was the thing that you showed me earlier.
Yeah. So we're gonna skip that question because the listeners can't see the picture, and that has a lot to do with it. But next time on the Big Woods Bucks podcast, we'll have one without a picture.
Will actually be interesting, and you'll like it.
Well, now, what about, did we cover, you said Chris had sent you a list. We don't want to,
that's what I said.
Yeah, I think, we went through that. He's like our parents watching out for us here. We pretty much got through everything Chris wanted to cover.
I want to make sure I stay on the good side.
He had a bunch of big notes there on the Model 99 and Mike giving up hunting spots and all sorts of things. Yeah, he said make sure you say names of places and roads.
Yeah,
and,
I that's why the people out there like me better than you guys. Everything's a secret with you guys. I tell people where to go. I don't hold anything back.
That dates back.
The funny part about what Mike just said is that he's the only person when we were at Moose Camp and everyone was talking about where they were going the next day, and he was the vaguest. Now that was amongst all the guides in camp, which is pretty open, since we all share the same areas. But that's Mr. Non-Secretive was the only one that wouldn't say where he was going.
I don't like those in reaches there because I got to press a button to tell you that I killed my moose, but it also shows them where I am.
Yeah, which I did end up going in that road. A couple days later, we went and hunted it. Which,
did you?
Nice spot.
Did you get way down?
Way down, all the way.
That's nice down there.
But it actually it gets really, really good, and then it makes a turn, and there's not near as much sign once it makes the turn. But it's probably 2.5 miles of really nice. But I thought you said you got in past where the camera was, but you never even made it that far. You were we shot right in the beginning.
We shot the bull right after where the camera was. I mean, not even 100 yards.
And where was that, Joe?
No. Well, hang on a minute. So,
Joe, wait a minute.
The camera was well down beyond where you shot the bull.
No, it wasn't.
Yep.
It was?
I
have a hard time remembering where those cameras go, Joe. As you know.
So, all right, we're gonna bust Mike's balls here for a sec. So, Mike comes back to camp on Sunday. He had been Sunday night. We all got in camp and all the hunters are there. And he comes back and he's all fired up. They went in there and put a bear bait where my camera was, and they stole my camera. And we're like, really? And I was with them. I knew where the camera was. And I thought, they put a bear bait in after baiting season and then took your camera? Man, what in the world? So I figured something weird happened to it and didn't think another thing of it. Well, Nick comes, and Nick was down hunting in that area. He says, hey, you got a camera down, that road that's kind of an angle, like right where it tees at the end? And I said, yeah, Mike does. Oh, yeah, well, it's still there. Might want to pick it up. I said, that's the one that got stolen. He went down the wrong road. Thought his camera got stolen. So we went in and got it, and there was tons of activity down that road. I mean, it was tore up. In fact, Braden found a nice piece of velvet that had just come off fresh. There was one that was late shedding. Anyway, we get down there and pretty excited to see it. This was on Saturday, the last day, and we had a few more hours and we were going to hunt that area anyway, so we wanted to see what was around. There was 2 pictures on it. There was a picture of when we set it and the picture when I walked up to it. And there's no way that that's all it got since Labor Day. So I think someone found it and maybe just left us a couple pictures on there and deleted the rest off. But I could be wrong. Maybe I'm accusing someone unjustly, like Mike accused someone of stealing it.
Maybe you didn't turn. Maybe you didn't turn it on right, Joe.
Yeah,
I'll leave all that tech stuff up to you.
Yeah.
I got a question. If we get time for one more
we
Hal
got all
Blood
time.
story.
Oh, absolutely.
The reason why is because when we're talking about Mike taking the wrong road, I did that this year. It was in that new spot, and I'd never hunted it before. And when we left that morning, it was foggy, and I drove right past the road that I wanted to go on. So then when I got down to the road where I killed the big bull last year, I thought, shoot, I missed the road. That's always embarrassing for the guide when you miss the road, So we ended up, we found it all right. But again, because Hal's not here to defend himself, I remember him telling me a story about Moose Camp years ago where he had flown over an area with some guy in the plane and found this road that just looked beautiful, and then when you get out to the end of it, it was, it opened up and had some nice old cuts and everything, and he thought it looked perfect. So he ended up, and he made me correct me on this. I don't remember all the details, but the gist of it was when he drove the clients in there the day of the hunt, the further he drove in, the tighter it got, and the alders were like almost ripping the mirrors off his Ram Charger, and he was thinking, geez, I don't know if this is the road that I'm supposed to be on or not. And it kept getting worse and worse. And just about the time that he thought he was going to have to turn around and get out, he busted into this opening and he saw some like finger cuts going out of it. He said, well, folks, we're here. And he didn't know where he was. He got out, called a few times and shot a bull and never told him the difference, but he didn't know where he was.
Sometimes you just got to roll with it. Well, anyway, we muddle along here the best we could without our fearless leader talking away. Hal can fill some airspace too, so we'll look forward to doing the next one when he gets back. He'll probably have some good story about his elk hunt and his Woodman arms and all that good stuff. So
we'll have some more moose stories to tell by then.
Yeah, Chris is all fired up. Take that, Chris. Too many moose stories. Can't wait to get this phone call. Anyway, we're going to be out of moose mode here. We got moose on the brain, so it's top of mind. So anyway, we appreciate you listening, and till next time, as Hal would say, good luck on the trail.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Till next time, good luck on the trail.